Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Startup Sense podcast. This is your host, Jonah Lupton. Of course, we're going to bring you a great episode today, as we always do. Just a quick reminder, if you are listening to this show, send me a quick email to jonahlupton@gmail.com and let me know why you're listening. I'd love to hear from you. Okay, today's guest, great guy, is Aaron Sherman. He is the co-founder of a company called SevenFifty. The website is 750.com. That's spelt out SevenFifty.com. And essentially what they've built is a marketplace or a platform where the beverage industry can connect with distributors and buyers and, et cetera. We'll get into all that in a second. Companies raised about $10 million. They bootstrapped for a while in the beginning, and then they raised a seed round and then an A round. Primarily all their employees, I think they're just over 40 right now, are based in New York with a few sales reps scattered around the country in regional areas. I think that's pretty much it. So let's welcome Aaron to the show. Aaron, how are you, man?
Doing great. Appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for joining us today. So tell us more about your company. What exactly does 750 do?
Sure. So, like you said, it's a platform for the beverage alcohol trade, operating kind of squarely inside of the three-tier distribution system that's federally regulated. And the primary feature of it is a marketplace that exists between alcohol distributors and retail buyers. And the retail buyer can be a restaurant, a bar, a wine shop, grocery store, et cetera. Anybody who buys professionally from the wholesale tier.
Now, we talked a little bit about this in the pre-call. I mean, this entire process of ordering and distributors dealing with restaurants and whatnot, this is a very, old school kind of process, right? A lot of pen and paper and in-store visits and things like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. And, this is kind of how we also came to work on the project. Two of myself and my other co-founder worked inside of the industry in, kind of many different roles, working in retail on the distribution side with importers, with brands. And we just observed that, everything was run on pen and paper, as you said. And so the process for buying and selling was very relationship based and, remains that way today. But the basic way in which information was distributed was all printed price books that got dropped off in person to a buyer in a retail location. Buyer would flip through that book, try and see what's available, get a sense, talk to the rep, do some tastings, and then kind of make a purchase, either in person or on the phone. Similarly, on the distributor side, they didn't have access to great information about their products either. They just had these kinds of flip books. And so also being able to kind of educate themselves about what was in their portfolios was a big issue.
So how did you guys actually get this whole thing started? I mean, what you've created at this point, you rattled off some numbers before, and I forgot to mention them in the intro. Can you kind of tell me how big you guys are right now? And then we'll go back and talk about the beginning.
Sure. Yeah. So, this is a two-sided marketplace. And so our primary customers are the alcohol distributors. And we work with around 65% of all the wine and spirits distributors that are in the U.S. Across about 36 states. And we work with upwards of 45,000 retailers in restaurants, bars, retail shops. And so it's a healthy network. Many of the kind of largest and most prominent players are kind of represented on the platform on one side or the other. And so it really does solve a kind of fundamental purpose in the industry, which is, how do we educate ourselves about the basic availability, pricing, and kind of educational content around products that are sold in the U.S.
So, thousands and thousands of restaurants and bars are signed up in your platform, and 65% of all the distributors in the U.S. How did you guys go from essentially nothing, startup 5 years ago, to this? I mean, what kind of hustle did it take? What's been your sales approach or your marketing approach? I mean, it's pretty impressive.
Oh, thanks. I mean, it's been a really interesting process for us, particularly because this was everybody on the team's first startup. So myself and my other co-founder, John Franco, who I mentioned, who worked inside of the industry, we obviously saw a big problem in the market because we were coming up in the industry at a time when the consumer web was kind of blowing up. And so we saw all of these companies and tools that we were using in our consumer lives, but when it came to kind of our professional lives, there was nothing available. and we teamed up with a third co-founder who comes from the technology side, and he's actually had a background in machine learning and kind of big data systems, and so he's been able to take that approach and knowledge and kind of apply it to the industry. But we we understood that the need for this, like I said, was kind of fundamental, and so our process really relied a lot upon building a product that grew out of our experience, but then also being able to really leverage the relationships that we had already baked in, and kind of initially grow the company that way, and also to be able to approach the right companies and the right sequencing, so that we could build a foundation that would resonate for a segment of the market and kind of grow it from there. So we launched in New York in January of 2012. And at first we worked with 4 to 5 distributors that we had close relationships with, who focused on kind of fine wine. And we were able to find a handful of buyers in the state who bought from those types of distributors. And so we, even from the start, had a little mini ecosystem that was valuable to both sides, where the distributors that we were working with were able to put their products online and make them visible to a set of buyers who they actually did business with. And from there, the business really grew via referrals, going both ways. And that was kind of our intent and our strategy from the get-go was, really leverage relationships to bring the right people on and to communicate the value from, direct testimonial. And so being able to bring the right distributors on, who then brought the right customers on, and have those customers then bring a new set of distributors on, kind of that seesaw was the approach that we took in New York. And then we brought that same model, to each additional state that we opened afterward.
With your platform, do you think there's more value for the distributors or the restaurants and bars? I mean, and maybe it's split 50-50, or, in your opinion, does it tilt one way or the other?
I really do think it's split 50-50. So, one of the foundational things that we do, and one of the ways that we think about ourselves as, is really as a data transformation company. And so we work with the distributors to take the raw data that they have internally about the products they sell, which typically, is really lacking in detailed information. So it could be a 12-character string that lives inside of QuickBooks or an ERP system. And we take that and we transform it into a kind of robust product listing that has all the detailed technical information about the product, as well as the pricing, availability, but also educational material like tasting notes or a history of the producer. And so using that information as kind of the foundation that we build everything upon means that we can add, immense value to both sides. So for the distributors, being able to take all that information and put it into a centralized marketplace where the products can then be discovered as buyers are searching for new items or looking for specific categories, is greatly valuable as a marketing channel. We also use that data to be able to let the distributors create sales collateral and actual printable or shareable sales information, so they can actually communicate proposals to their customers. So, they have a suite of tools that kind of function on top of that data layer, as well as, the function of the marketing channel. And then for the retailers, they get huge value out of it because this is really saving them time and giving them access to a set of information that they would have just never had available. If you can imagine, the process of trying to look for something like, I need a new Chardonnay that comes in half bottle in a specific price range. Let me look across every distributor that operates in the market to see what products they sell that fit that description. It's a nearly impossible process when you look at the hundreds of distributors that can operate in a given market. So for them to be able to go online, plug in those criteria that they want to search upon, plus a multitude of other options, pricing, details of how it's grown, where it's made, and be able to get a snapshot instantly of all the products that fit that description.
This is Jonah Lupton, founder of Jewel and host of the Startup Sense podcast. At Jewel, we help entrepreneurs and startup founders build, launch, and grow their companies by providing superior technology, marketing, and consulting services. We help clients of all sizes, budgets, and industries. We put our clients in the best position to raise capital, grow revenues, hire employees, and maximize their profits. For more information or to set up a free consultation with our team, please visit our website at jewel.net. That's JOOL.net. So one of the words that you said that really I find the most interesting is discovery. Bars and restaurants and even retailers, I'm sure their stores are still dominated by, the brands that we all know. We see the TV commercials, whether it's the Buds and the Coors Lights and the Absolutes and Kendall Jacksons and, the biggest brands out there. But I'm sure a lot of these places are looking for new products that they can incorporate, whether it's spirits or wines or beer. So, how much of shelf space or bar space or well space or whatever is available for new discovery of some of these things?
Yeah, I think that's one of the interesting features of the industry is that there are so many different products that are available. In particular, over the last decade or so, there's been an explosion of SKU count in the market, and so it means that there is a lot of room for curiosity on the buying side and discovery. So, often people will be making decisions around, which items they want to have in their well or on the shelf that kind of fit those major brands, and they can use the site for that discovery. Who sells these products that I know that I need to have on my shelf. But then they can also utilize the ability to kind of understand more broadly what is available in a category to fit the more specific niche, parts of their beverage program. And so those things are both kind of constantly in flux inside most retail establishments. They'll be turning over things that are in their well or changing out ingredients that are in cocktails. They'll also be experimenting with new niche products and holes that are on the list. And so it really caters to that kind of discovery.
Now, talk about your fundraising. I mentioned in the intro that you guys bootstrapped it in the beginning. How long did you bootstrap, and when did you raise your seed round?
Well, we bootstrapped for about the first year after we got started. And so we raised our first seed round around the end of 2012. And that was from a group of angels and kind of, people within our immediate network. And then, raised our Series A in 2016, the very beginning of the year.
Okay.
And so...
go ahead.
Yeah, so, we've operated, pretty lean, and we've tried to really, maximize our efficiency, because part of this project that is somewhat unique in comparison to many other startups is that this entire industry had to kind of go through a bit of a philosophical transformation in making the jump from pen and paper to operating online, leveraging technology this way. So we've understood that, there's going to be a bit of a slog, and there's going to be a lot of kind of education around how this really brings value and, why it's okay to introduce new levels of transparency and new ways of doing business. So we've, kind of geared up to be able to work on this over the long haul.
How do you get bars and restaurants to use the platform? Do you have to have sales reps, have a one-on-one discussion with whoever the purchasing person might be, or are your distributors doing some of that work for you?
Yeah, a lot of it comes from the distributors educating customers, and also from the various buyers kind of interacting and teaching each other about the fact that we exist and then how to use it. It's one of the kind of interesting parts about the industry is that it is very kind of insular, and the people inside of the industry, many know each other and have relationships, and so these types of tools can kind of be spread organically that way.
Now, how long have you and your co-founders known each other? Did you guys have a friendship before you started the company together?
Yeah, it's actually kind of a funny story. Myself and Gianfranco both went to NYU and met each other the first week of school and kind of found our way into the wine industry together. We'd spent some time studying abroad in Italy, had, kind of countless food and wine experiences that made us realize that this could be an industry where we would want to build a career. And at one point, we were working together in a bar in the East Village that we were both kind of managing, and we had a regular there who knew more about cocktails and spirits than either of us did, and more than most other professionals that I knew. And it turned out that that was Neil, and he was at that point at Goldman Sachs working for a quant fund, and in his off time was spending just about every second of it in bars, learning about cocktails, learning the scene in New York, and meeting bartenders. And so we formed a relationship with him that way. And when we got ready to get serious about trying to start 750, he was the first person that we approached, kind of telling him some of the things that we'd observed of where there were problems and how we thought technology could solve it. And as soon as we brought it to him, he was on board and excited to get involved.
So
what's serendipitous the way it came together.
What's been your biggest challenge, either personally or for the company over the last 5 years?
That's a good question. I mean, I think the thing I was touching on earlier is probably the biggest challenge, which is that this really does represent a change in many ways for how people in the industry think about doing their work and kind of where they can apply their time. And particularly on the distributor side, when it came to introducing a new level of transparency where they had to get their minds around the idea that their competitors would be able to see their product listings and their pricing, and there would be more information generally available about what is happening competitively. That definitely took time and a lot of education on the part of the distributors around how this would benefit them long term if they were willing to kind of open up and allow some of that transparency to come in. So that's taken time to happen organically over the 5 years that we've been operating. At this point, we've gotten enough traction and proven enough value that I don't think that's really a issue anymore, but it was definitely one of the things that we came up against in the beginning.
Now, are you guys currently hiring? I mentioned in the intro that you're about 40 people, mostly in New York, kind of spread around the country. I would assume you guys are always hiring mode, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Particularly when it comes to engineers, we're kind of always on the lookout, and our doors are always open. It's a problem that I know is shared by just about everybody who's running a technology company.
Right.
Finding the best talent and also, for us, finding people who have an interest in the space, beyond just the weekend drinking that many people indulge in.
Now, what has your platform done, or what will it do in the future for, some of these new spirit brands or microbreweries that are trying to, get a voice out there? Maybe maybe they've been picked up by some distributors, and I'm not even sure how that industry works. Like, I'm not sure, if you're a microbrewer from Chicago, I don't know if you try to find a national distributor or regional distributors. I really don't even know how it works. But are you able to give a voice to some of these smaller brands now?
Well, absolutely. And I mean, any market that we operate in, we aim to work with anybody who is able to sell products to retail. So that means craft breweries and local distilleries who can sell to retail in that state, all the way up to the largest distributors in that market. But when it comes to small brands actually being able to get distribution outside of their home state, they're actually required by law to work with a distributor in that state in order to sell to retail. And so that is kind of a secondary benefit in the new product that we've been rolling out for small brands specifically, which lets them understand state by state who are the distributors that they could potentially work with, what products are those distributors selling, and where might their products fit in, and who might be a complementary distributor for their brands. And so that helps them get those relationships in place so that they can actually get distributed in new states.
What's one of the mistakes that you've made? I mean, that the company made? I mean, honestly, I'm sure every startup has them in 5 years. I'm sure you guys have made a few. Any that you could share with us? If you could go back in time and do something differently, what would you do?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mentioned that our approach to marketing has, been very organic and kind of based upon referrals, and we've been able to kind of scale up really efficiently that way. But I would say probably our biggest mistake was not building in a true marketing function to the business until only very recently. And I think we've learned a lot about the value in really properly communicating all the details of what your business is to prospective customers as well as existing customers. And, because we've kind of gotten to a certain scale without marketing, one of the places we focused in really heavily at first when we brought marketing in was around product marketing and just properly educating users about the full value they can get out of the platform. And so if I could do it all over again, we would have definitely brought that in much sooner.
So, I mean, I'm looking at your lineup of investors, and there's a couple names in there that I certainly know, and maybe some of the listeners know, like Formation 8 and Draft Ventures and the Pritzker Group. I think they're out of Chicago. I'm not 100% sure of that. But what was your strategy with getting these investors involved with your company? Did you target them specifically? Did you get warm introductions to them? And I mentioned that, you mentioned earlier that you had some of these people in your network, but I mean, how did it all come together? Because there's a lot of us out there trying to raise capital, and it's a daunting task.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that, through the fundraising process, all of the most fruitful conversations came by way of an introduction of some sort. So never kind of going into it cold, but having a warm introduction from either another entrepreneur or, investor from a previous round, something along those lines. When it came down to the group of investors we worked with, it really was, finding people who understood the potential scale of our business operating inside of an entire vertical and having the opportunity to truly build tools across the full vertical and connect all the dots, and what that meant in terms of, what the timeline would be for, building this out fully, as well as understanding kind of the dynamics that are in play when you're building a marketplace and a platform across a whole vertical.
Awesome. So what is your big goal? I guess there's a two-part question. What's your number one goal for 2017, and then what keeps you up at night, I guess, as they say, or what makes you the most nervous about growing this company, and what are some of the pitfalls that you guys might encounter as you do try to grow further?
Well, I think the two things are pretty linked, actually. So we've only recently rolled out functionality where the retailers are now not only using 750 as a place to do research and discovery and kind of reference product information, but they can also build their orders and communicate their orders to their distributors on the site. And so for this year, we're looking heavily at how we ramp that up and, get more of our existing users to adopt online ordering. That's also the biggest challenge that we have ahead of us, because the behavior is pretty ingrained in people to, pick up the phone and quickly send a text message, or, jump on the phone and, tell their sales rep what they want to order that way, or to do it in person. And although sometimes that process is arguably faster than using a system, the disadvantages are kind of numerous. And so it means they don't have, a understanding of their order history from each vendor, and they don't have that information really in front of them when they're going to place reorders. There's a lot of miscommunication that happens that way, where the distributor rep might not understand what specific product they were referencing. So they might say they want the Cabernet Sauvignon from this specific vineyard and producer, but then the rep has to say, well, did you need the 2013 or the 14, or did you want this in a 1.5 liter bottle or a 375 milliliter bottle? All of those things, lead to errors in the process. And so we're doing a lot to try and educate people about the value in using a system where you can reference the actual item numbers from the vendor, have clear, specific references to the product names themselves, and then also be able to record a history of everything that you've purchased over time with that vendor. And so really making that transition from just an information resource to a full marketplace is our focus and our challenge.
And just to clear this up, do you guys also, as part of your platform, are you an inventory management platform, or did you just plug into the inventory management platforms that are already out there?
Well, so we consider ourselves an order management platform, which has, basic components of inventory, specifically that running history of what you purchased. The problem is that there actually aren't any major inventory management systems that are operating at any kind of scale yet. So there are a smattering of kind of new companies that are doing this that we, we'll certainly work with as the opportunities present themselves. But at this point, Microsoft Excel is the leading inventory management platform for restaurants and retail shops. Yeah.
And that's probably, I'm sure, like we said before, some are probably still doing pen and paper. And I can honestly vouch for that because I have friends that own bars, and I've seen them at the end of the night doing their inventory with literally just going around with a piece of paper and a pen, marking off what they need to not necessarily order, but grab out of the storage closets downstairs.
Yeah, exactly.
Very, very old school. Anything that we skipped over that you wanted to mention? One question I kind of like to throw in there, and I'm sure you've had a lot of both, the good days and the bad days, but has there been like a standalone best day for you so far?
No, I don't think I could point to a single best day. A piece of advice that one of our advisors gave us when we were first starting was to kind of try and maintain as much perspective around both the highs and the lows as you possibly can, because as you get deeper and deeper into the business, those are going to become more and more frequent. You go from having good months and bad months to, as time goes on, having good weeks, good days, bad days, good hours, bad hours. And so, you take the highs and the good moments when they come in. You also try and balance out the lows and just kind of keep pushing forward.
Yeah, I think that mental strength is one of those traits that a good entrepreneur has to possess. What would another trait be, or what's one trait that you think that you've kind of learned over the last 5 years that makes you a better founder today than maybe you were back in 2011 or 2012?
I mean, it's such a cliche, but I think that there's so much truth in it, which is just, don't sweat the small stuff. It ties into that idea of just trying to maintain perspective, throughout the process, because you're going to be challenged in different ways as you move forward. And the most important thing is to be able to maintain your focus and don't get distracted.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing all this stuff with us. What's the best way to connect with you online? Do you use any social media, or if one of the listeners wants to reach out to you, is there an email address that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, just our general info at 750.com is probably the easiest way to get in touch. It's info at SevenFifty.com. And I would love to hear from anybody who's interested in chatting.
Fantastic. And I know you mentioned that you're looking to hire some new engineers. Are you hiring any other positions besides engineers?
Not actively at the moment.
Okay. No worries. Well, thank you so much, man. Like I said, wish you the best. You guys are off to an incredible start. I'm totally blown away by some of the numbers that you rattled off. So you guys have kicked ass over the last 5 years, and I hope it continues for you.
Thanks, John. I really appreciate it. Nice chatting with you today.
Thanks, Aaron. Talk to you soon.
All right. Take care.